So every school is different. Every program is different for baseball or softball. But I'm going to try to keep it as broad as possible to try to help as many different players as I can. For the most part, when you're in a tryout situation, they're going to try to evaluate how fast you run, how well you hit or hit for power, your defense, your throwing. That's pretty standard. Now, most instances, if you're a returning player, that coach is going to have some history with you, and that can vary from program to program. What I mean by that is certain coaches will just take into consideration what they see at that tryout, what you do for those 3 or 4 days. And I know a lot of coaches out there will take kind of the whole body of work, what they saw over the summer, what they saw you do last year as a player. So if you do have that, bad tryout or a bad day, it may not affect you as much. That's something that's definitely out of your control. It's interesting how every program evaluates differently. It can be a little difficult. I can remember myself going through tryouts and watching high school tryouts now where 15 or 30 kids in line waiting to hit and you get 8 swings. You definitely want to try to stay loose. You want to try to take your practice swings. You want to try to do the best you can. You want to do everything full speed. I know myself when I'm evaluating hitters, a lot of times at a high school tryout, you'll see a kid get out of the cage and he'll high five his buddy and say, great, I went 10 for 10. So yes, he made contact on 10 for 10, but doesn't necessarily mean he has a good swing. It's not uncommon to see a guy swing and miss off a machine inside or off batting practice, or everybody gets a couple laughs out of it, or the player may get nervous. But for the most part, you want to do everything full speed. You want to show the best you can. Resist the temptation to say, well, I fielded 10 out of 10 ground balls in a row off the gym floor, or that kid made an error, the ball went off his glove. It generally doesn't work that way. I do think that your preparation will show for better or for worse in a tryout. I know myself from years of giving individual lessons, I usually have a pretty good idea of what the result is going to be for that player if he's trained for me the whole offseason. If he's a pitcher and he's throwing hard and he has command and he's throwing strikes, I expect things to go well. If it's a guy that hasn't put a lot of effort in and he's out of shape and his delivery didn't get any better and he doesn't have command, it's going to be hit or miss for that player, and you can go right on down the list. But I think if you're honest with yourself as a player, baseball or softball, as to what you've put in the offseason and kind of where you're at, I don't think you can deviate that much as a player, meaning you're not going to, if you're an 80-mile-an-hour pitcher, you're not going to go in and throw 90, you're not going to go in and throw 70. You're probably going to be about what you were in the offseason. So the more preparation you can do, especially when there's still time left, the better off you're going to be. The one interesting thing up here in the Northeast is there's different levels of baseball and softball, and that can definitely affect your tryout and your tryout experience. You may have an all-boys high school that has a freshman, a JV, and a varsity team. They may have 120 players trying out for one freshman team. We have some smaller schools where the coaches will say, we're definitely having a varsity team, and if I have enough players sign up, we'll definitely have a JV team. And that can be difficult. Some of your friends may be trying out and they may get cut, or you may get cut from a program and then your friend makes a team and it wasn't really tryouts, it was just whoever signed up made it. So it can definitely play on you mentally. And there's a lot of nerves going into it. I mean, I've seen a lot of players have very good experiences at tryouts. A lot of players have very bad experiences mentally. Nobody likes being cut from any sport. But I think to be proactive when you're in that environment, when you're in that tryout situation, do the best you can to impress. Go full speed on everything. It sounds corny, be first in line. Or it can be, the opposite. Don't do anything negative. Don't show up late. Don't miss a workout. There's plenty of times where a coach will say to me, you know what, I wasn't going to keep this kid, but I just couldn't cut him. He was the first one there. He hustled. He did everything I asked him to do. And know that your tryout, if it's a 4 or 5 day tryout, treat it as that. Generally, nobody makes the team or gets cut on the first day. You could have the best tryout of your life, however you want to define that, on your first day. And then the second day, you could have a terrible tryout. So now you're sitting at home. Am I good? Am I bad? Am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it? That's a lot of negative energy. I think it's always best to focus on what you can do positively to have a better outcome. And that way you'll be able to handle the highs and lows. I can tell you from a coach and from an evaluator standpoint, you're generally not as good as you think you are or as bad as you are. So if that's any consolation to you, if you believe in yourself and if you've had previous success, that's probably going to show as you go through the tryouts. But it's definitely going to be a roller coaster, and it can be an emotional process, and it can be where you see a different side of players where they can be very vulnerable to what's going to happen, especially if you do the math, and we've all done this standing in line. There's 30 of us trying out. We have a decent idea of the 15 that are going to make it. They're going to keep 5 more. Well, we know out of us 15, only 5 of us are going to make it. And that can affect you mentally, and it can definitely affect your performance if you get so worked up with it and so concerned about it that it puts a negative on your performance because you're distracted, or at the very least you're preoccupied with that and you're worried about it. And that definitely is something that's going to have a negative effect. It's best just to stay positive and put your best foot forward. That way, when you get done, no matter what happens, at least you can say, look, I did the best I could. I did the best tryout I possibly could, whether it worked out or not, and then you won't have any regrets. If you enjoyed the video, please let us know by leaving a like. If you have a question you'd like answered, please leave it below in the comment section. If you want to catch more of this content, make sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. Thank you. See you next week.